Part 16. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 152. Probably because he is a demon, Yan Ji still feels very kind to the Demon King in front of him. Although the Demon King's breath was a bit dangerous, she did not take it seriously. For a good-looking and capable male, Yanj has always been more forgiving, so he never cared about his rudeness. The Demon King did not reach out to answer the scales in the singer. He bowed his head, drew down the emotions on his face, and whispered, "I have heard from the elders before that every dragon will be called by his ancestors when he will die going to the buried land of Shenlong Valley. The dragon bone originally belongs to Shenlong Valley. I was angry because the dragon bone was stolen by the human race. Now that I know where the dragon bone has gone, I feel relieved." The dragon scales in the girl's hands glowed with golden light, and it was clear that the pure and strong aura was washed away in the dragon scales. The coercion in the dragon scales was even greater than the former dragon bones, and he did not even dare to look directly. For the sake of that race, she would rather use her scales instead. What kind of people do you like?" The Demon King's eyes were dimmed. The body's parents who feel the skin, even if their predecessors are dragons, should not treat themselves like this. The scales should let it grow back. How can the removed scales grow back again? And the words sang with a smile, "Anyway, most of this thing is that it is not a big deal to dismantle one piece, and you are also a junior, when this is my meeting ceremony for you." She stuffed the scales into the hands of the Demon King. He was holding the scales in both hands. The scales were still faint and there was still heat. He squeezed his fingers slowly and squeezed a little harder. Yan Ji didn't notice his abnormality. "You're about to rob yourself. Others can't see the status of the Demon King, but the song can be seen at a glance." The Demon King nodded. His eyes could not help but narrowed the altar not far away. He is the Demon King, and Lei Ji will be more powerful. But now that the altar is destroyed, the day of the calamity may be his death. "Nothing will happen," Yanj said. "I can restore the altar to its original state." When Bai Ji took away a scale from the Song of Songs and gave it to the Demon King, his consciousness had been paying attention to the situation of the Song of Songs and the King of Demon. Hearing the words of the song, not only did he not feel a little relaxed, but he felt even more uncomfortable. He was accustomed to the umbrella of others, never thinking that one day, someone would help him carry everything. When Bai Ji kept researching these runes on the altar, Yanj chatted with Hu Tianhati, the young and promising young demon of the demons, and instructed them to practice. Although she is not a real dragon, she is also a tree charm that has existed for thousands of years in the heavens and the earth. It is no different from a demon. Her insights in practice have her own truth. The soul of the dragon is powerful. When Yanj points to these demon repairs, he can still feel the joy of the host. About the life in the host's imagination is like this. Be a demon ancestor, preach, and be respected and loved by all the demon people. After spending a full year, Bai Ji finally thoroughly studied all the runes on the altar. He was bent on repairing the altar by his own ability, so that she would not have to make a fortune for herself, but after all the runes had been studied, he knew how ridiculous it was to repair the altar by himself. The shrine that cannot be destroyed by thunder can be destroyed by Xianglinger in one hit, because Xianglinger is a human being. This altar and the spiritual spirit of the cultivation, he could not even start. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 153. Probably found that Bai Ji stopped meditation, Yan Ji no longer chats with the Demon King, but appeared from the pavilion under the altar. "Are you eyebrows?" Bai Yan, who heard the words, looked up slightly and looked at her. In 1 year, she was helping him to support the umbrella in the rainy season, and she was helping her to support the umbrella in the snowy season. When the gale came, she used the enchantment to help him shield the wind. Every few days, it is she who brings some aura of food to his side. He had heard the Demon King puzzled her, why repair this person? When I was an egg, I was watched by him at the Xianjian school, and it was my relatives. If you respect me, you will put down prejudice to him. The wrongdoings of his disciples should not be responsible for his bad name. When he heard that, he felt embarrassed. Asking himself, although he had guarded her in the Xianjian school, in the end, Xiang Linger destroyed her congregation, making her a snake-like figure when she was born. His guard almost killed her. But now, she still misses the former friendship. Suppressing the chaotic thoughts, Baiji nodded. After he smiled at her, he moved away without any trace. These runes are all ancient arrays. And they are all directed against the thief. Although Baiji was ruthless in his cultivation, he also had a high accomplishment in formation. Yan Ji nodded and said, "You tell me how to fix it, I'll fix it." Baiji looked up, seeing her soft and transparent eyebrows, and instantly realized, she should have known that this altar can only be repaired with the power of demon repair. However, the altar array is linked in a circle, and even if she is a dragon, he does not think she can repair it by her own power. He whispered, "Elders of the demon clan, maybe they can help." "It takes the power of ancient times." Yan Ji reached out and rubbed his head. "I am a dragon, inheriting all the abilities of the ancestors. Repairing the altar is not difficult for me, so I don't need to worry." What she said seemed to stabilize the hearts of the demons. But Baiji was full of sorrow. He thoroughly studied the altar's formation method. Although he did not know how deep she cultivated, he knew that she could never do it alone. The Demon King is also worried about this. He has the same thoughts as Baiji, but the altar must be restored. This is related to the survival of the demon people. He asked the song, "Can I help you?" Yan shook his head, "I can do it alone." The Demon King looked at the song. The girl's eyebrows were full of confidence, because Su was the main body of the dragon. Even if she gathered the coercion on her body, the coercion in the eyebrows could not be ignored. During this time, even when she was preaching with the little demon, he would listen silently, never missed it. But she looked at him like a junior. Even if his heart was about to move, he could only push himself. After all, it's not the time. This time, he didn't want her to be involved in the danger, but he hoped that the altar could be repaired. So even if there are thousands of words in his chest, he will eventually say, "I have all the elders of the demon family on standby. If there is any need, please tell us in time." After a pause, he solemnly said, "If it can't be repaired, don't force yourself. As long as you are, the demons are also there. She is a Shenlong, and a demon-like goddess. She is here, and the demon faith is there." Yan Ji nodded solemnly, and she patted him on the shoulder, "Relax." The Demon King's eyes fell on the slender fingers that Yan Ji patted on his shoulder. His throat rolled, but in the end he said nothing. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 154. Yan Ji didn't actually know that after the host's life, Xiang Linger inherited the power of the dragon ancestors and returned with the help of Baiji. Xiang Linger is the heroine. Although the power of the dragon she inherited is strong, the heavenly path will not destroy her. But the song is different. She is a Shenlong, a powerful being that Tiandao has been suppressing and destroying. When Yanj was repairing the altar, he had to let the power of his dragon not leak out and be discovered by heaven. So at the beginning of repairing the altar, she deliberately let Baiji set up an enchantment. Day by day, time passes. Seeing the altar can be restored immediately. Skyrim's dark clouds are dying, and thunderstorms are brewing. Everyone thought that the thunderstorm was a good sign of the altar. After all, this shrine is beyond the rules of heaven and earth, and it is normal for thunder to fall when it is complete. But Yan Song knew that this thunderstorm came from her. The 2 dragon eggs conceived in her belly were against the existence of heaven. Once the eggs come out, it's time for Thunder Robber to land. However, Song of Songs did not take Lei Ji in his eyes. From the day she realized she had dragon eggs in her body, she was thinking about how to escape that day. The black clouds in the sky are getting denser and denser, the black clouds are rolling, and the whole world is dark. The demons only thought that the altar was better, so the heaven and earth would have such a vision. Yanj has been transformed into a dragon shape, and she endured the pain in her belly to try to end the last formation of the altar. Before he felt relieved, Xiang Linger suddenly appeared behind Yan Ji, and a spelled aura sword pierced into the waist of Yan Ji. Yanj was setting up her wholeheartedly. She would be attacked by her without defense. In the first moment of reaction, she flung out Xiang Linger with her tail. The thundercloud rolling in the sky is the moment when the thundercloud is brewing and falls on the body of Yan Ji. The altar was not complete, and when the thunder fell, it instantly smashed a big hole in the altar. Yan Ji ignored the burnt flesh wounds on his body and hurriedly settled again. Tian Li did not stagnate after falling from the first one, and one after another fell on the word song in a rush. This accident happened too quickly, and when Bai Ji reacted, the smell of meat charcoal was permeated in the air. His eyes were red with blood, he was a human being, and he would only disturb her when he rushed to the altar. In anxiety, he rose into the air, turned into a sword, and wanted to intercept the thunder in the air. The Demon King also seemed to have reacted and vacated with Bai Ji to resist these sky mines. Xiaozu had previously been promoted, but he was aware of the threat of Yanj when he was halfway through the promotion. As soon as it appeared, he banged on the ground and stunned Xiang Linger on the ground. He ran into the air after he finished, and opened his mouth with a mouthful to devour the thunder. Their actions not only did not suppress the thunder, but they seemed to anger the dark clouds in the sky. The wind was strong, and the dark clouds were rolling to make the whole world dark. Lightning was raging in the dark clouds, and tornadoes swept from all directions in the direction of the song. Sky mines fell like raindrops. The power of this thunderbolt is huge, and the elders in the demon repair, the soul that can be smashed by the thunderbolt is scattered. Existence like Bai Ji and the Demon King, every time they take a thunder, they have a feeling of half-life, but they are clinging and holding a breath, no one retreats. After a while like this, the small brick that devoured Tianlei suddenly lost his vitality, and went straight to the ground, disappearing before falling to the ground. Tianlei also disappeared at this moment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 155. The dark clouds are just disappearing in an instant. The sun's rays reflected the earth, everything around it looked so bright and bright, people would think that everything was just an illusion. Bai Ji flew towards the altar immediately. The shrine has been restored by the song. The dragon-shaped words were reduced to about 2 meters, and they were lying black on the altar. He couldn't feel her breath. This cognition left him blank in his panicked mind. Little white Bai Ji held her in her arms, trying to run on her with her aura. The Demon King on the side waved his hand away and rushed into Yanj's body with his aura. He then reacted, she was a demon, he was a human, and his aura could only speed up her death. He was too late to be grateful to the Demon King and just hugged her tightly. Little White, his voice trembled. At this time, he was unable to save her. This powerlessness and despair filled his heart, making him a black hole in his head at this moment. Su was because of his call, Yan Ji's eyelids moved, and with his nervous expectation, he slowly opened his eyes. It was also at the next moment that she transformed into a young girl. She looked up and smiled at him. The altar is repaired. She looked at him and murmured, "Are you happy? Happy? Happy?" Her eyes were so bright, she looked at him expectantly. It's like a pet beast, waiting for the owner to praise it. He burst into tears in tears. But he put up with it the next moment. He rolled his throat and smiled slowly in her expectant gaze, happy. He repeated, hurlingly saying, happy. With her gaze, he smiled even brighter. She grinned and laughed. As long as you are happy. Such a word made her tears again. He wanted to say that he was not that demon, he wanted to say that he was not happy at all. He preferred the altar to not be repaired, and he did not want her to do anything. But he couldn't say a word. He looked at her, smiled. He couldn't help it, choked and asked her, why? Because he was a demon, or because he had guarded her as an egg. Whatever the reason, she shouldn't be so heartbreaking to him. After all, neither the demon nor him was as good as she thought. Because it's you. She stretched out her hand, trying to touch his head, her hand falling in midair and weak. He reached for his hand and lowered his head and grabbed her hand on his head. He looked at her with a satisfying petting smile, and his heart was even more embarrassing. He couldn't help but stared at her and said, that's a devil, it's not me at all, it's not me. He has completely disappeared, and you just do this. Do not know. She still laughed and looked at him with a smile. He used to think that her smile was bright and that her smile was dazzling, but never before did she feel that smile was so hot and dazzling that he even wanted to be ashamed of herself under her smile. He murmured and said, I'm not him, I'm not him. If he had explained it to her long ago, maybe she would not be so good to him, maybe she would not be like this. Stupid, she said, don't be unhappy, I hope you are happy, always happy. You are so happy, and so special. She said, if you like an apprentice, go after it boldly. Life is short. Before he could talk, a burst of blood was suddenly sprayed by her, spraying him all over his face, and the hot blood splashed on his face turned cold. The next moment, she became a coke-like dragon again. She didn't have the strength to speak, nor did she have the strength to open her eyes. Her eyes were closed tightly, but her paws were holding his hand tightly. She held his hand tightly and moved towards her belly. She was crawling, black with coke, but her belly was intact. She looked up strenuously and murmured in his ear, cut. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 156. Yan's abdomen was banned by herself, and Baiji's hand was pressed against her belly by her claws, and then she felt the life in her belly faintly. Baiji understood the meaning of Yang almost instantly. The blood on his face faded, his lips trembled, and he didn't have time to speak, and she squeezed his claws loose suddenly. Tears blindly blinded his eyes, he squeezed her paw with his backhand, and the phrase "little white" choked on his throat, but he never shouted again. The Demon King was exhausted, and he fainted on the ground after spitting out blood. Baiji clutched her hand tightly, leaning down and hugging her body tightly in her arms. The tears that had endured for a long time finally shed. He kissed her tan dragon head, his body trembling, and he could not say a word. His sword has killed countless people. Are notorious villains. Although he cultivates the ruthless Tao, he knows that it is not easy for the world to be alive, so he also uses this ruthless Tao to wait for the world. He never made a sword easily, his merciless sword was for protection, not for killing. But now, his sword was slowly slitting her belly. Her body was split into a coke-like existence by thunder, and her abdomen was opened without even bleeding. There were 2 eggs in her belly filled with aura, but because of the restraint, the dragon's energy was not scattered. She transferred all her cultivation to 2 eggs. He put the egg in her arms and hugged her sitting there. There were no tears in his eyes, and his body seemed to have lost his soul. He was so stunned and motionless. How come this is the situation? He was spotted by her that day, and after earning money, his income broke. He also squared his heart. He likes her. Not like Xiang Linger. Not like the kind of creatures like the world. He likes her, and that kind of likeness makes him feel happy when he thinks about it. He faced his heart that day. He wanted to wait for it. If she went to Shenlong Valley, he would follow her. Wherever she went, he followed. She likes that demon, but it's okay. The devil is gone. As long as he is in front of her, she will slowly like him. But she was gone. The demon said she wanted to ride a dragon, and she let him ride on her in the public, just to make him prestigious. The devil likes to eat, and she will remember to give it to him. When the wind came, she helped him shield it. When the rain came, she blocked him. She knew he couldn't let the apprentice, so she hated disgusting to keep his apprentice in Zhenlagu for many days. She was worried that he couldn't shuttle through the void, so even if she didn't like it, she let the pesky person get on her back. He couldn't fix the altar, she helped him. She asked him, "Are you happy?" Not happy at all. He wanted to protect her for the rest of her life, but now she was buried in his hands for the rest of her life. "You stand still." The demon king behind him was sober, although his voice was weak, he was also very stern. "This is the dragon egg of my demon tribe, where are you going to take it?" Baiji heard these words, and thoughts came back to him after he thought about it. Although he was as good as before, he had faintly added several altars. Between light and flint, I suddenly understood what those extra large arrays were. He put her back on the ground, and then threw 2 dragon eggs into the center of the formation. As soon as the dragon eggs entered, the formation started at the next moment, and the surrounding stones moved, moving the 2 dragon eggs into the altar. She counted everything. There is even a trail for the 2 dragon eggs. But she didn't leave a trace of her life. She asked him if he was happy. She said as long as he was happy. But how happy he was without her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 157. Baiji's eyes on the Demon King did not dodge at all. I want to take her back to Dragon Valley. She always said that before the death of the dragon, she would return to Shenlong Valley, and the place where the bones were buried should be the final place for the dragons. She certainly didn't want her bones left. He hugged her, step by step, and walked down the altar. The Demon King didn't stop, only the bones were left. What was it for? He was disdainful of a man like Baiji. Xianglinger was awake from a coma. Regardless of the pain in her body, when she raised her eyes to see her master, she reached out her hand and pulled Baiji's trousers. "Master," she mumbled weakly. "I'm sore, I'm so upset." Baiji bowed his head and looked at Xianglinger. His dark eyes were silent, and when he looked at Xianglinger, it was like looking at a dead man. Xianglinger was frightened by his expression and gaze. She hurriedly said, "Master, the demon tribe has always been brutal, and has always looked at Xiaoxian realm. If the altar is repaired and they get another dragon, they will definitely want to initiate Xiaoxian realm. Attack, you have always been pregnant with the world, do you have the heart to repair the immortal creatures? I know that you have a special feeling for that dragon. Master, I don't regret everything I do. Master, I am for you." Xianglinger said so much and so much, but there was still no expression on his face. Waiting for Xianglinger to finish speaking, his sword slowly appeared in his hands. He looked forward, his voice faint. "Previously, you said that you knew you were wrong, and you are willing to make a difference and be a part of it. Are all these words you cheated?" "I didn't lie to Master. I was wrong. I shouldn't drag Master, Master. I do all the things, and I do it alone." "You are my apprentice," he said with a harsh voice, word by word, and slowly said, "My master once said that if he accepted the apprentice, he would take another self, and if he did, he would be responsible to the end. No, Yan, the laziness of the teacher, I always thought you did something wrong because of my discipline. I can forgive you for everything you do, but you killed her. She is my woman. She has my baby in her belly. The sword in his hand stabbed at Xianglinger on the ground, and his voice was flat. Since you can't teach you well, I'll kill you so that you don't harm others. The thundercloud that Ben had dissipated came back at this time. The thunder rolled, and the lightning howling in the thundercloud seemed to be roaring towards Baizi. A thunder struck Baiji's sword in a blink of an eye, causing him to stab Xianglinger slightly away from the heart. But his sword did not retreat. Once again, Xiangling er, you are my apprentice, I know you are lucky and have always been the kind of blessing of heaven, but what about that? If you kill her, you have to pay for her. Master, Master, Xianglinger cried in despair, how can you be so cruel? I'm your apprentice, I'm Linger, you said you would always protect me. After the sword in his hand was split again by a thunderbolt, he sneered, and the sword in his hand turned into countless daggers and rushed towards Xianglinger crazily, but I repented and killed you, so I don't have to protect you all the time. Now, Tiandao probably also felt that it was no longer possible to stop Baiji's killing intentions. After the clouds roared a few times, Liun shouted, and then it rained heavily. Under the merciless sword, Xianglinger on the ground completely lost his breath. He didn't stop, step by step, stepped forward slowly, broke through the void, and entered the chaos of void. Send you back to Shenlong Valley, will you be happy? But you are dead, how can you be happy? I haven't told you, since then, I will follow wherever you go. I will accompany you. But Baiji, he finally failed to enter the Dragon Valley. Nether turbulence is not so easy to shuttle, the last time she was protecting him, so he can escape from the turbulence intact. This time without her, only one breath left him who was hacked by Leiji, and it was not long before he entered the turbulent stream, and then died in the turbulent stream with her dragon body. When the spirit was annihilated, he bowed his head and kissed her brow, Xiaobai, if there is a future life, change me to pet you, and die until the death. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 158. When Yanj returned to the system space of the fans, the chickens sat on the high stools as if they were entering. She didn't bother the chicks, but knew the entities in the chaotic space for the first time. The body of the bean sprouts rose a little, but it is still root bean sprouts. This skinny and weak is not in line with their majestic aesthetics of the Shu tribe. Yanj sighed. Just at this moment, the chick opened his eyes, his round eyes squinted at the song, and he followed the song with a long sigh. Yanj asked, this time, the mighty one is not underworld. He wanted to ride her, and she let him ride. He wanted to be bullied in the future. Although she was gone, he couldn't help him, but there were still 2 dragon eggs in the plain, which was his son. He wanted the heroine, and the heroine was dead. He did everything as expected, and now he should be happy. Even if there is no investigation, she will be satisfied as long as she is not blackened. The chick squinted and stared at the song. Yan's song, don't look at me like this, it's like I'm sleeping with you. Originally, I wanted to load a deep and instantly exploded, all day in my brain is to sleep, do you know what you want to do? A piece of wood is still on the brain, you talk about you, you talk about you. Its wings pointed at Yanj for a long time, and under the narrow eyes of Yanj, it ended with a long sigh. Yanj asked, what happened? The chicken was frustrated, that mighty one, has been blackened to the 3rd level. Song. Before waiting for her to speak, the cub said, you can bear it later, don't sleep with him anymore. There are a lot of men in the world. If you can't help but sleep with others, don't sleep with him. Song. Was this guy always shouting for her to sleep forever? She remembers this guy urging her to grind a mighty iron rod into a needle. Now she blame her. Hemp eggs. After being stunned by the words, the cub probably remembered the past and had to sigh again. I mean seriously, you really can't sleep with him anymore. So is this something wrong with her sleeping? So every time this guy mellows because she slept with him. What's wrong? Since she didn't want to sleep with her at first, let's talk about it. Now it's black. Yanj also wanted to be dark. The chicken consoled and said, if you remember not to sleep in the future, he will become this kind of guy. Darkening as soon as I slept, the price was so great, I really couldn't sleep. Yanji did not nod, but he also agreed with the chicken. After all, except for her sleeping on this plane, nothing really changed, and the guy turned black. She didn't expect that the root of the blackness of the mighty is here. Mom, it's too sleepless. The chick continued, I have another piece of bad news for you. With the exception of the mighty one, Yanji felt that other news was nothing. It's about the mighty. The addition of the chicken cub made Yanj grind his teeth fiercely. Millions of fans have been promoted. Although they have been promoted a little bit, I have found more information about the powerful in the system space. The chicken flew down from the high stool and walked in front of Yanj. His voice was extremely painful. There have been countless systems that have received orders from powerful people before, but the systems that received orders have hung up. The first update will be updated every day at 11 o'clock, but the unexpected situation is not ruled out, just like I was frightened by your countless comments today. Molly's hair is sent to calm your care. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 159. The chicken said to himself, so many systems are down. This mighty man is still in love. Hey, it feels strange. Wood, I think we jumped into a big pit. It really hurts. Will we hang up too? We always think this mighty man is a scourge. The song is not as hurried as the cock. She kept listening to the suffocating, and then calmly asked, did the order-taking systems blacken the powerful? When did they hang up? The chicken stunned, no such detailed information. After a pause, it also said, it may be that the fan system is still relatively low level, and you may see it after upgrading once or twice. Words, well. This time, the chicken was surprised. I really didn't expect Yanj to be so unpredictable. He jumped back on the high stool and looked at Yanj's face. Do you have any ideas? Yanj reached out and rubbed his eyebrows in a weary position. Don't think about it. Whether or not this is a pit, she has no retreat now, and all she can do is go forward. Fortunately, this time, she knew the reason for the blackening of the mighty one. She will pay attention later. As long as the guy does not continue to be blackened, she will have time to come back. Go into the plane, Yanj said. Don't worry, there is hope before hanging. There is no such word in her dictionary. The chicken was probably inspired by her, and nodded strongly. Yes, your brick has swallowed the thunder mine last time. It seems to be promoted, and it may grow into an eye when it is promoted. Yanj was surprised. So how long will this guy be promoted? Did she only rely on her to enter the plane this time? Suddenly, without the big golden fingers, Yanji's heart was empty and quite lonely. Entering the plane, while the surroundings are quiet, Yanj first fuses the host's memory. The host name this time was Fang Kaiyan. Fang Kaiyan was hailed as the first beauty in central Beijing because of his beautiful appearance. Later, she entered a girls' school and was crowned the capital by talent. Such a girl, born to the modern plane, may be a strong woman who is not inferior to a man. Born in ancient times, she is also a curse and a beautiful woman. She was born at the end of the Republic of China. Even though she was brilliant, she was a woman. She had a marriage contract with Cao family since her childhood. Even if she could go to a girls' school, she didn't have the right to speak. Fortunately, the only thing that comforted her was that she had met her fiancé. Not only have they met, they often meet together in private. Fiancé Cao Zijian is a very romantic and talented man. Two people are like confidants. Every time they meet, they wish to be tired forever, so they are very happy to get along. Before the girl's school work was finished, she married the Cao family. The imaginary life of the husband and wife did not come. In order to pursue her studies abroad, and to help Cao Zijian go abroad, Cao Zijian also got a bad impression with her mother-in-law. I thought it would be good until Cao Zijian returned to China. However, it was not expected that after returning to China, Cao Zijian not only had a new confidant, but under the wave of marriage thoughts against feudal thoughts and the words of the parents' matchmaker, Cao Zijian was absent from her letter. The host never dreamed that she would be left by Cao Zijian. Not long after she took a break, Cao Zijian built a grand wedding, and married a new couple who sincerely loved. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 160. Cao Zijian went abroad in the past few years when the country was turbulent. The Cao family even went down. Mrs. Cao and Mr. Cao smoked big cigarettes together. The host later even washed clothes and embroidered for others to maintain the expenses of the home. A pair of delicate hand cocoons, full of life, thin and thin, tortured by life. When Cao Zijian finally came back, Cao Zijian said that the marriage contract between them was the order of their parents. Everyone supports Cao Zijian's words. Everyone was persuading her to stop thinking foolishly. What is ignorance? What is she doing for the Cao family these years? So what is she spending so many years waiting for him? The host was depressed and sick, and died within a few years. Although this life is short, but the host is not reconciled at all. In order to help this man, she strongly supported him when everyone disagreed with him going abroad. She entered the Cao family, abiding by her duty and dedication, and acting as her own Cao housewife, but was finally swept out by the Cao family for such a ridiculous reason. The Cao family had all been assisted by her, but none of them had spoken for her, all mocking her for mocking her. The host doesn't want to live such a life again, she has to live a life of her own. Yan Ji looked around. She entered the plane at a bad time. The host and Cao Zijian had been married for 2 years. Cao Zijian had never returned to study abroad. Because it was a long-time prince, the host's affairs were almost handled by the host. Even so, the host is still not satisfied with the mother-in-law. Because no matter how good the host did, she helped Cao Zijian to go abroad and had not given birth to the oldest grandson of the Cao family. The Cao family seems to have a great career and great prosperity. However, in this war-torn era, the Cao family is a family of people who make ends meet every month. Grandpa Cao and Mrs. Cao both wanted to keep the beauty and respect of the Cao family all the time. After everything went well, even smoking smoke had to catch up with the trend. As the host takes every effort to maintain a family's livelihood. At this moment, Yan Song was sitting in the south study room where the host often looked at the ledger and called the director. She squinted slightly with her head in her hand, as if taking a nap. Voices were faintly heard in the courtyard. The girl next to the host, Hong Xiang, came in at this moment and gently pushed the inference song, "Grandma, Grandma 3 is back." Grandma 3 is now the grandfather, bringing a lot of people back, but the scenery is beautiful. Yan Ji said a while, but didn't mean to get up. The 3 sons of the Cao family, the eldest son went abroad to study, the second son had no skills in fighting and chickens in Chingri, soaked in the kill every day, and later married a sister in the kill. The third son was not born by Mrs. Cao, So when he was very young, Mr. Cao was kicked out of the house by an errand to find a martial artist. It is because the three sons have a place in this troubled world. From the beginning of the military academy to the last captain, it was a mixed situation. Xiaoxiang whispered again, "Grandma, don't you go out and see." If it was the former host, not only would he have to meet, but he would also have to greet a banquet to meet the three younger brothers. But Yan Song has no intention. She rubbed her forehead and complained to Angxiang generally, "There is no money at home, I worry that this is too late, there is nowhere to go. After my death, the villain blackened again." Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 161. Ayaka blinked, and she was very clever to remind her, "Grandma and grandfather, the third master became an official, and he must have brought back the money." Yan Ji reached out and poked her forehead, "You little clever, he just brought back money, when you will stay home. Also, Sanyi hasn't been close to the Cao family all the time." Angxiang sighed and said sadly, "What should I do?" Sublime grew up with the host from a young age. Although the relationship between master and servant, the two are close to each other as sisters. But this is the only intimate girl, but was finally wronged in Cao Ziqiang's backyard after being occupied by Cao Ziqiang, Cao's second son. Later, Cao Ziqiang asked her to serve the fox friends and dog friends who were with him. She ran and cried once with the host. At that time, the host had a difficult time and she did not tell her own affairs. Yanj entered the host's body and felt the host's resentment against the Cao family. She reached out and rubbed her head. "What is your little girl worrying about? I still have it here." Without waiting for Xiang to speak, she got up, "Just let's go to the left and right, it might be better to go out earlier." "Grandma, don't you change clothes?" Yan Ji glanced down at her own dress, because she wanted to see the housekeeper and mother-in-law, so although the hostess' daily clothes were quite satisfactory, but not gorgeous, she swept her placket and said lightly, "My family, what clothes to change?" When Yanj entered the living room, the old Cao family and Cao Zi, Cao's third son, were talking warmly in the living room. The family members of the Cao family stood behind the grandfather Cao, staring at Cao Zixi with glowing eyes. The three sons of the Cao family all looked good. The Cao family finally came out to support the facade. Tonight's grandfather Cao was full of joy, as if he was about to enter the cave. Grandpa Cao, who was half lying on the couch, looked up at the words and immediately said, "Zijian's daughter-in-law is just here. The third child is back. You should get someone to prepare a table banquet, clean up the third child, and the old one. Those little brothers brought back by the three. You have people prepare a few table banquets in the side hall. These little brothers were born and died following the old Sanyuan Feng Chen, but you must entertain them well and don't let the people down." Yanj smiled and put the account book in his father's couch. "I'm about to tell my father about this, the family account is running out of money, all the supervisors come to me, and the money for the dishes at night is not in place." Then, Grandpa Cao froze, and never expected that Yanj would say such things at this time. And what's the use of this kind of thing to him? The house is not well managed, but it is not the housekeeper's problem. Yan Ji was so humiliated in front of everyone. The smiling Mr. Cao immediately sank. He turned his head and looked at Yan Ji. "How can this be when you have a good family in your hands?" MRSCAO's most loved third aunt recently came out with a smile, holding Yanj's hand and saying, "Zijian daughter-in-law is kidding me. I came out of the famous Jingping girls' school in Beijing. Don't be angry, my dad just needs to make a joke just to make everyone happy. It is clear that this matter is to be lifted. What is the relationship between the lack of money at home and the host? The host is from the Jingping girls' school. Is it possible to make money with achievements?" Yanj broke her hand and said to Mr. Cao, "I mean it. If dad doesn't believe it, look at the account book. The clever woman can't cook without rice. There is no money on the account. I can't make it worse. For more, if you have the ability, please praise me.